the show. I'm Peter Whittle. Now, before I introduce my guest this week, just a notice about an upcoming NCF Locals event, quite a special one because, of course, it's the election. It is on the 25th of June, Tuesday, the 25th of June at 6 p.m. in Wellingborough, and our guest speaker is going to be Ben Habib, who is the Deputy Leader of Reform, of course. So, great friend of the channel as well. So if you want to come along, I'm sure it'll be a great evening, because obviously the election is just around the corner at that point. So do get in touch via locals@newcultureforum.org.uk and we can send you the venue details. That's 25th of June, it's a Tuesday at 6 p.m. Now, I'm delighted that my guest this week is a somewhat new face on the scene. His name is Younes Sadaghiani, and he is a political analyst and influencer. He's with me now. Welcome, Younes.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
You've got to tell me, I know what a political analyst is.
Yeah.
I should do by now.
Yeah.
But can you tell me, when you say influencer, I think most people watching will think social media influencer. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I started my page around September of last year,
Yeah.
and my aim with the page was to inform people and educate people, because I was watching mainstream media and I was watching all these different faces coming, and I really thought to myself that these people don't really know what they're talking about and they're pushing the wrong narrative. And because I studied politics and international relations from London School of Economics, and I have also a background in media, I came up with this idea that I'm going to voice my opinions backed up by facts.
Right.
So at the time I was working in Chelsea Academy, and I was teaching politics and economics to GCSE and A-level students. And I started making these long format videos online. The first one was about Trump. The second one was about Palestine, Israel. And I just spoke about a host of issues, from the rise of Islamism to this whole woke ideology. And I really see these two subjects, the rise of Islamism and the woke ideology, as a threat to Western democracy and Western civilization. And I started speaking about it. Some people could say it's quite controversial. I'm quite brave for some of the things that I say, but I thought a voice like mine is needed, especially from the background that I came from. I'm originally Iranian. I grew up in Iran, and I came to this country when I was 13 years old. Right. And I think I have quite a unique perspective, because I know that Iran is a beautiful country, but it's ruined by the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Yes. Is it true to say that, obviously, if you did politics at college, you were pretty interested in politics?
Definitely. It's one of my passions. Yeah.
But this is a kind of relatively new departure for you, the commentating.
Yes, commentating on politics, yes. But these are the ideas that I've had for probably 15 years. I've been following politics very closely ever since, even before I went to university, but especially till then. I'm very interested by ideas and by debate, and whatever it may be. It can be psychology, it can be religion, it can be politics, it can be social issues. So it's really my passion. And I really like to be an influencer, I mean, like in terms of being in front of the camera and, you know, just open people's minds. Because as I said, I've done a little bit of acting in the past as well, but I'm not necessarily an actor. I like to be myself in front of the camera, and hopefully I can make a difference.
Well, being ourselves is often the hardest role of all, of course. But tell me, you mentioned there, when I was asking you about yourself, you said Persian Iranian. Now, in my experience, people who call themselves Persian are very strong about it. They're Persian, they're not Iranian. I mean, is that the case for you?
Yeah, well, recently I've done a genetics test, and you'll be surprised how many different genetics you have. I have like 5% Scandinavian in me, about 5% Baltic, and 1% Native American, which I found amazing. I was like, how did I get in there? But yeah, mostly, but also you have to realize about me that both my parents are half. My dad is half Turkish, half Iranian or Persian, and my mom is half Iranian, half Pakistani. So I have like 3 different countries in me. But the reason why Persians or Iranians are, you know, really rigid about this whole Persian thing is because they think that Iran doesn't really represent them. Because when you say Iran, it just comes across as another Arab country. But A, we're not Arabs. B, we have our own culture. And C, we have our own language. And the name only changed about 70 years ago, because it was called Persia before Reza Shah Pahlavi the first. And the only reason why he changed it was he had a little bit of a beef with the British, because we had the Anglo-Persian oil company, and the oil of Iran or Persia was owned by the British for like 100 years.
Yeah.
And when Reza Shah came into power, he said, well, first of all, I'm going to change the name and call it Iran, because we're going to nationalize everything. So it was that. But I think he made a mistake, because another reason is that when you say Iran, especially for people that are not aware of the Middle East, they just think, oh, another war-torn country in the Middle East. But when you say Persia, people think of this, oh my God, Cyrus the Great, the Persian Empire. It brings you better images to your head. And I always make this joke that if I'm the leader of Iran or the president of Iran in the future, I will change the name to Persia, because it has a better ring to it,
Yes. I mean, when I was sort of growing up, obviously a long time before you, we did actually, it was interesting, the Shah was called either the Shah of Persia or the Shah of Iran.
Yeah.
I suppose more people knew him as being the Shah of Iran. You obviously, presumably until the age of 13, grew up in Iran.
Yes.
Did you? So what was, you obviously would have been there completely during the time of the Ayatollah Khomeini, to begin with.
Yeah.
But presumably your parents knew the old regime.
Yeah. They did. Well, my grandparents.
Yes.
And they grew up in that era, and they always say nice stories. And they say to me how rich they were, how free they were.
Yeah.
And my granddad, for example, used to work for an American company from my mom's side, and he used to make a lot of money, to the point he had like many houses, and he had 4 kids, and they were all privately educated. And as soon as the revolution happened, all of that stopped.
Yeah.
And they threw him in prison, actually, because he was working for an American electric company, which is insane.
Right.
And I think the Islamic Republic of Iran has really taken Iran back 1,400 years.
Well, you see, for most people, I think that looking at social media, they would see these, clips of very Western-looking women, going to university, all of these things, and of course, cut to the scene today, and it's entirely different. One thing that I do know about Iran, obviously, it's an extraordinarily youthful country, isn't it? I mean, its population is something like 50-60% youth, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And it's such a shame, because these youth are just going down the drain. And personally, I might be biased, but I really do think Persians are a very special culture and genetics.
Yes.
They are very smart, they are good-looking people, they are very charismatic, they're very funny, they're very warm. And fundamentally, the Islamic Republic of Iran, these people are not even Iranian. These people are actually Arabs. These are Shia Arabs that conquered Iran 1,400 years ago. Back then, it took us 200 years to get rid of them. And now this time is their second coming.
Right.
And unfortunately, the first time they conquered us, the whole thing mixed.
Yes.
And if you actually look at them, majority of these ayatollahs and these imams, they're all Iraqi, like they were born in Najaf. Like the whole Shia ideology is not even Persian. And if you know about the Islamic culture or Islamic tradition, there were 2 groups of people: Sunnis that only believe in Muhammad, and then when Muhammad dies, it splits into 2. So people that were followers of Ali and his son Hassan and his grandson Hussein, and followers of just Muhammad. And what happened was that there was a lot of bloody fights between the Shias and the Sunnis, to the point that the Shias were pushed out of Saudi Arabia, and they had to almost come and conquer Iran, So they have no resemblance to Iranian culture, because, the Iranian religion is Zarathusht or Zoroastrianism, which is, I'm not a religious person, but if you look at Zoroastrianism, it's a very fun religion.
Yes.
It's almost like every single month or every single week, just find an excuse and have fun and party. Women are liberated. Cyrus the Great was the first king in history to have a human rights bill of rights for his people. Women were 2,500 years ago were doing like ministerial roles in terms of governing the country. And you fast forward 1,000 years to Islam, where women are second-class citizens, which is a very odd juxtaposition.
Well, what do you, therefore, Younes, what do you think of the Western response, in particular, I'd say the Western feminist response, to the various demonstrations, protests, which have in fact ended in death, that have happened in Iran recently? I mean, you don't hear much about them at least from the West, do you?
Yeah, and I think the Iranian women are very brave, and I really salute them. However, this is not just a women issue. This is a Iranian issue, because as a matter of fact, majority of people that are being shot and killed and thrown in jail in Iran are men, and they're being hanged. We recently had this rapper called Too Much Salehi.
Yes, I saw.
And he's been sentenced to death because he just had a few songs criticizing the regime, and that happens all the time in Iran, you know. And it's unfortunate because Iran could have been Dubai times 1,000. It is a gold mine. It's the second highest oil producer in the world. It's the second highest gas producer in the world. It's an extremely rich country. Like it could have easily been in the top 5 GDPs of the world. And now our GDP per capita is 115th in the world. We are one of the poorest countries in terms of people's income. So people are forced to have one meal a day.
Yeah.
You know, which is unfortunate. And if you want to really look into it, there's a few different reasons why this happened. And the first reason is that the Shah was overthrown, was because America and Britain saw Iran improving very fast. And the Shah had nationalized the oil, and he had increased the price of oil. And that's why you had the energy crisis in the 1970s. So President Carter, in conjunction with the British, they were like, oh, what do we do to overthrow this guy? They basically find the stooge, which is Khomeini, and they knew, unfortunately, one of the unfortunate things in Iranian culture, but that has eroded away, is that people couldn't say no to Islam back in the day. So they said, okay, we're going to use Islam and we're going to, you know, also use the neo-Marxists within the Shah's regime to overthrow the Shah, and they did. And I'm not blaming just the American and the British. They did what they had to do because of their own self-interest. Another reason why I think the Shah was overthrown was because of religion. I really do think so. And the Islamic Republic in the last 45 years, one of the only achievements of the Islamic Republic has been that it downgraded Islam and the mixing of religion and politics together in people's minds in Iran. So majority of Iranians, they say we're not Muslim anymore because of what Islamic Republic done. Majority actually support Israel, you'd be surprised. You know? And that's why I made videos about the rise of Islamism in the UK, because I can see signs of it happening here in these societies.
You grew up as a Muslim, is that right, or what?
I grew up as a Muslim, and I'm not a Muslim anymore.
When did you...
About when I was 15 years old, because when I came to this country, I went to a Christian school, and then I started learning about the Bible, and that's when my obsession started, because I studied the Quran when I was a kid, and then when I came here, I studied the Bible, and I was like, they're saying two different things, and I became an atheist. But then I'm not an atheist now. I was an atheist for 10 years, and I was reading all these Richard Dawkins books, The God Delusion, and all these people, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris. And I also think there is a certain emptiness to atheism as well. So at the moment, I would consider myself a spiritual person. I believe in God. I believe God is an energy and frequency that flows through everything. And there's a huge difference between religion and spirituality, because religion is control and oppression, and spirituality is freedom and your own connection to God. But
with your... You left Islam, or you no longer were a Muslim at 15. I mean, one of the things that many people know about Islam is that, you know, basically you were an apostate. So does that mean that therefore you should be put to death?
Yes.
So what happened when you left?
No, it doesn't. Well, fundamentally, I come from a very liberal family, so they didn't say nothing to me. However, Islam has done that throughout history, that they scare people. They either force people, and this is the truth about Islam, and, you know, people are scared to say it. Islam grew by blood. Islam grew by force. Islam attacked countries, and Muhammad took part in 29 offensive battles. Not even one of them was defensive. And he basically forced people to convert to Islam. And if he didn't, he beheaded them. And that's why ISIS and Boko Haram behead people. It's not like they didn't invent this in their head. They do it because their prophet did it. You know? And so did Ali. And Ali was so famous for beheading people that he had a sword, and his sword had a name. And the sword was called Zulfiqar. Can you imagine? And this is the truth of Islam, okay? I'm not having to go at all Muslims. I have family members that are Muslim. My granddad was a great Muslim. He was a Hafiz. He had memorized the whole of the Quran, and he was the loveliest, sweetest guy. So I'm not having to go at Muslims. I'm sure there's a majority of Muslims that are good people. However, Islam as an ideology is extremely dangerous. And you would only understand that if you read the Quran, and you read the hadiths, and you look at the life of Muhammad. And another thing is that not only Islam grew by force, once you join it, then you can't leave. So you're an apostate, right? And if you're born into it, you can't leave. Then you're an apostate. So I was born into it. I never had the choice to be a Muslim or not.
Yes.
You know, so now if I leave it, I'm an apostate. You know, and this happens in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, in Iran. If they realize that you've converted to another religion, if you're a Christian or if you're an atheist, they will kill you. Like this happens. This is in their laws. You know.
Do you think that? I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but that there is an extraordinary amount of willful naivety in countries like Britain about Islam, the religion, if you like.
Yeah, there is. And again, this is the unholy marriage of wokeism and Islamism. So the woke culture tries to pretend, you know, like these queers for Palestine, for example, like queers are killed in Palestine. How can you have queers for Palestine? And they think that criticizing Islam or criticizing any foreign idea is racist or is Islamophobic or is xenophobic or it's sexist, or and they give you these labels in order to stop you from having a genuine discussion about things. And the whole thing is a lie. And there's a saying that if you want your society not to collapse, you have to save your society from three things: war, hunger, and lies. And wokeism leads to lies because it stops us from having a genuine conversation.
You think, though, if you look back to, in fact, the Iranian Revolution, 1979, it was hugely backed, actually, by the left in the West, the French particularly. I think that they sort of, didn't they sort of have leaflets kind of like dropped all over Iran, I think at some point, something like that. So there's always been that kind of my enemy's enemy is my friend type of thing. Going. When you look at the situation in Britain now, people are quite happy to talk about Islamism. Right? Do you think that's a cop-out? Do you think that it's actually is Islam, or is it is the threat that we might face it actually from Islamism? And how would you define?
Islamism is actually taking the word literally. That's all it is.
Yes.
So you can put it however you want. Yes, I'm sure 95% of Muslims, they don't follow the Quran word by word. They cherry pick. Okay? But Islamists, they follow it word by word. Right? So you can make your own conclusion on how you want to define that. But also another thing that I want to say is that, you know, Christianity also committed a lot of atrocities. All religions did. However, the difference between Christianity and Islam were those two differences. The first reason is that Christianity went through its own reform and through its own age of enlightenment and its own age of renaissance. And, you know, 300-400 years ago, Galileo was taught, the scientist Galileo was tortured and killed by the church because he suggested the world is round, because he said the world is flat. And also people like the guy that done evolution, sorry, what's his name? I forgot. Darwin also said, well, we evolved, and in the church said, well, no, that's we were created. So the same thing needs to happen to Islam. All religions have something good to say and something bad to say. But then the problem is with Muslims is that they believe that, oh, this is the word of Allah. This is the word of God. And no man can say anything towards that. No, yes, we can. We can pick certain parts as out and say, oh, this has no place in society. The same thing that happened to Christianity. And we need to break this in people's heads. And Muslims, another difference between Islam and Christianity is that Islam is a very militant religion. It's an extremely militant religion. There's a lot of call to action in Islam. There's a lot of call to jihad in Islam. There's also calls to action such as Muslims have a responsibility to Islamize the whole world. You know, and that's why it worries me, because it's in their religion. They believe that until the whole world isn't Muslim, they shouldn't rest.
Do you think that Europe is being Islamized?
Yes, 100%.
And do you think that the West response is feeble?
Yes.
What would it, I mean, for example, there was a poll out recently showing that 32% of Muslims in Britain would prefer Sharia law.
Which is insane.
That's a third, that's quite big. And then there were many other opinions which you could call socially conservative, if you like, as well. Why do you think, or what should happen, do you think, Younes, to mount a challenge to that Islamification?
Well, First thing is dialogue and discussion and having difficult conversations.
Who, with whom and with whom?
From leaders, from people, prominent figures, from our politicians to prominent figures that know about the subject and come and, because one of the main things about Islam and Muslims or Islamists is that they think that if you say anything bad about Islam and something bad happens to you, that's okay. That's not okay, you know? And that's why a lot of people stay silent because they're like, well, if we say anything about Islam, then we have it coming for us. You know, they get scared for their, and you know, a lot of Muslims believe that, oh, if you question Muhammad or if you question Islam, and if they come and kill you, they will go to heaven. They have this belief system in their head. So that's one point. Like, we have to challenge that, okay? Through our media, through people like myself, people like yourself, our politicians. But then the problem is with our politicians, they're so weak and pathetic that, first of all, they pander to the Islamic vote, A, and B, they don't want to come across Islamophobic. But there's no such thing. Look, phobia means an irrational fear of something. There's no irrational fear of Islam. And you would realize that if you read the Quran. There's no irrational fear of Islam. And you just need to go and see what happens in Afghanistan with Taliban. Go and see what happens in Pakistan. Go and see what happens with ISIS. Go and see what happens with Boko Haram. Go and see what happens with the Islamic Republic of Iran. The only country right now that I really respect is Saudi Arabia. And the reason is that the leader, Mohammed bin Salman, has realized that he cannot live by traditional laws. And he basically has had a lot of reforms in his country where he says, well, we're going to turn down the volume of the azan. You know what azan is? It's like call for prayer 5 times a day. We're going to turn down the volume to 1/3. Women can drive. Women can be models. They've had their latest like swimwear models in Saudi Arabia. Women can sing. Women can do everything. And these are the things that are all prohibited in Islam. So Mohammed bin Salman, the leader of a country, the birthplace of Islam, has come to this realization that if we want to bring Saudi Arabia to the 21st century, we can't be living by Sharia law. He has realized that, right? However, we have ignorant people that have immigrated to this country, and they probably escaped their country because of Sharia law.
Yes.
They escaped their country because of Sharia law. They're in the West now, and they're so stupid, frankly, and ignorant that they think that somehow what they escaped from, they can bring here and make here hell as well. And I just don't understand how they cannot breach that thing in their minds, you know?
When we've seen huge demonstrations ongoing, still obviously since October the 7th, when you look at those, it does seem, first of all, people seem extraordinarily confident in what they're calling for, you know, whether it's jihad or it's anti-Israel or whatever it is. But also, when you look at it, it does seem, I'm going back to this point about our response, the police seem to have sort of almost accepted that they can't really do anything about it, or rather that they won't. Is that your impression too?
It is. I know there's also a degree of political correctness and weak leadership, because if there was a neo-Nazi rally in central London, everyone would be arrested within 10 minutes. So I don't understand how people can come and ask for jihad or ask for the eradication of Israel and shout river to the sea. And I think Sadiq Khan has something to do with it, because I think he panders to the Islamic vote in London, and he always hides behind the excuse of Islamophobia. As I said, there's no such thing as Islamophobia. I'm a quarter Pakistani myself, as I said. But I don't play identity politics. And I think these politicians in the UK, they play a lot of identity politics, unfortunately. And another thing is that I read this study, is that actually the youth born in the UK, Muslims born in the UK, they tend to be more extreme than the ones that are born in the Middle East. And my only conclusion to that is that because these people haven't seen what Islam can do to a society, they tend to be more extreme, because they haven't seen it with their own eyes what Sharia law can do. And Sharia law includes laws like chopping of hands and feet. That's the type of laws, stoning women for adultery, killing women for being raped, not for raping, for being raped, because well they were probably had it coming to them, but they were dressed too openly. So all these things, these are all Sharia law. And I don't understand why people, like, when people say that, I don't know why. It's like saying, like, a neo-Nazi comes to the street and says, well, we should kill all Jews. That's the same when someone says Sharia law to me. Yeah.
Do you, I mean, so presumably, in terms of like, if one wants to counter the kind of growing Islamification, you're saying it's all about, basically about talking and about dialogue. We have a lot of talking and a lot of dialogue. You mentioned there the weakness of our politicians. I mean, you are a political commentator. When you look at the scene in Britain now, I mean, what is your impression? I mean, we're in the middle of an election. This is going out while we're still in the middle of an election. What is your view of how the election has been, for example?
Well, it gets me depressed. I feel like our politicians
are you following it even?
Yes, I am following the Reform Party. I'm actually working with them in communication strategy at the moment. I'm a big fan of Nigel Farage. I feel like he's the last breed of charismatic politician and honest politician that we have, even though the mainstream media attacks him all the time. However, I still think he can't do it by himself, you know, and I see the Labour Party and I just find them so extremely pathetic, frankly, and they try to pander to both sides. They try to pander to the woke LGBTQ crowd, and at the same time they try to pander to the Islamists, which is that complete juxtaposition, you know? And then we have the Conservatives, which have been a failure for the last 14 years. They're going to lose. Reform is leading the Conservatives now in the polls. Then we have other parties which are, again, so politically correct and robotic, like the Green Party, the Lib Dems, and they all have the same talking points. And I really do think this is a watershed moment. I really do think people like myself, and presumably yourself, and Nigel Farage and others, proper people need to stand up and speak up, you know?
You're 30, is that right?
Yes, 30 years old.
One of the things that we've discussed a lot on this channel is that younger people, I don't mean to sound condescending, but younger people are in this country the most left-wing that they've ever been. But the difference is that they're not becoming more conservative when they like get a house and a family. They're staying that way. I mean, what do you sense in your peers, you know, the people that you mix with? I mean, are they very much, would they vote for reform too or not?
You'd be surprised. I think there's a silent majority in this country. And I think actually a lot of people agree with me. A lot of people do, unless they're brainwashed by whatever they've been brainwashed with, whether it is the woke mentality or the Islamism. And you have to realize that our institutions, such as our university, have been hijacked by these left-wing neo-Marxist ideologies. And when I was in university, as you said, I came out of university like almost a socialist, believe it or not, and I was a very left-wing guy. And the same thing happened to me. As I started working, I became more and more conservative, to the point I would say I'm center-right now. I'm a capitalist, I believe in free markets, I believe in freedom of speech. But also, another change that has happened is that now we have, the reason why young people tend to be left-wing, because old-school liberal values advocated for freedom of speech, for freedom of expression, for libertarian values, which is freedom. Now we have the authoritarian left. So the things have switched in a way. Because before it was the right wing that tended to be more authoritarian and the left wing that seemed to be more libertarian. And now it's the opposite. It's the right wing. And you can see that with Trump, for example. He's more right-wing, but he's more libertarian. He believes in free markets. He believes in freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And now the left wing is the one that tries to cancel you. Cancel culture. If you say something, you're fired.
Yes. Also, the other thing as well, I mean, is that the one thing that unites the left now is an utter contempt for working class people. You know, this is one of the biggest changes. Isn't it? They don't even bother to disguise it. You know, and which is one of the most unremarked upon things currently in politics. Well, politics then. So, do you see yourself? I mean, where is this leading to for you? Would you want to be a politician?
Hopefully one day, sure. I would like to, and I want to be in media. I want to make a difference. I want to have my own show, if possible. I would like to be on TV. I would like to interview important people, and hopefully I can get into politics, whether it is in the UK as an MP, and I will try to go up that ladder and maybe Prime Minister. And then what I have in mind is that once Iran is freed, I want to be part of the opposition that goes and takes back Iran, because Iran The problem, one of the reasons why the mullahs have stayed in power for so long is that the opposition to them is very weak.
Right, right.
Like we have this guy called Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi, which is the grandson of Reza Shah. And he's been in LA for 45 years, and yeah, millions of people know him, but I just find him very weak.
Right.
I find him very weak, very uncharismatic. And every time people ask him, well, do you want to go back to Iran and take it? And they say, oh, I'm going to help out.
Yes, yeah.
You either want the job or you don't want the job, you know? And I also think there's also divisions. Like some people support Reza Shah Pahlavi, Shahzadeh Reza Pahlavi, and then some other people support some. So there's like a mixture of left wing and right wing. We all need to unite.
Yes.
We all need to unite so we have a proper opposition to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I hope to be part of that opposition. And so once the Islamic Republic of Iran collapses, then we have actually a team of people that can go and take over the country.
What's the likelihood of that happening, do you think? Collapse?
Well, look, it depends on multiple different things. First thing that it will help is that Trump is elected. Because once Trump was in power in 2016 to 2020, the Islamic Republic of Iran was in a very weak position. Few reasons. The first reason, they were broke. They couldn't sell their oil. They had sanctions on them. Second reason is that Trump killed Qasem Soleimani in Iraq, which was the head of their Revolutionary Guard. And Iran was in a very defensive position. So they had their top generals being killed and they had no money. And they were very close to collapsing, actually, very close to collapsing. And unfortunately, we had Biden that came into power. And let's not forget, Biden used to work for Jimmy Carter. And Jimmy Carter is the one that caused the revolution that brought these guys in the first place. And when Biden comes into power, again, he relieves some of the sanction, he gives them some money. And what do? They spend that money and they go and sponsor Hamas to cause the attack in Israel.
Yeah.
You know? So first of all, we need strong Western leaders. And at this moment in time, I said, we have very weak, pathetic, virtue signaling, wokey leaders, right?
I would say also self-loathing.
Self-loathing, yes, exactly. That's a very great word. Yes, self-loathing. And they're just not proud of their heritage. So we need strong leadership. People like Trump, people like Netanyahu, hopefully you have a strong leader in Britain, which is unlikely. Someone like Farage. And so we need international support. That's one reason. Once we have international support, we have to target the heads of the state, as Israel is doing, because Israel killed like 4 senior members in Syria when they attacked the consulate. And the Islamic Republic of Iran always tries to pretend they're very strong, but they're not very strong. They have very old equipment and they're not strong because 80 or 90% of Iranians are against them. However, the people are scared to come out in the streets and protest because they get shot and they get killed.
Yes.
And as I said, 2 years ago, we didn't have the support of the international community. If someone like Trump comes and the Islamic Republic is in that defensive position it used to be, and then we have another uprising, and we get the support from the international community, there is every chance. I really do believe that.
Well, look, we shall look at your progress with interest in that case going forward. Thank you very much. By way of closing, Younes, I mean, what have you got in the pipeline immediately? What have you got coming up in the next few months? I mean, you're working.
Yeah.
Well,
So basically, I'm doing some work with the Reform Party at the moment in communication strategy. I will be meeting Nigel Farage tomorrow. I have a song coming out. The song is called Politics in Chaos. Politics in Chaos.
Song? Is this
it's like a rap song, but it's not just any rap song.
Where can we see that?
It's going to be on Spotify from tomorrow.
Okay.
So I'm gonna release a little snippet. It's a very interesting song, and I speak about a lot of heavy subjects in the song. Stuff that we spoke about now. It's not just some old rap song. It's talking about nonsense. It's actually a very intelligent one. So I will release that. I will be just working, doing interviews. Hopefully, I'll have some more interviews coming up. Going to be growing my page, Younes Rocks.
I was going to say, so where can people find you if they want to work?
So you can find me on Instagram.
Yeah.
You can find me everywhere. So you can look up my name, Younes Sadaghiani, Younes.
All right.
Sadaghiani, Sadaghiani. Or my handle is Younes Rocks, Younes Rocks. You can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, you can find me on X, you can find me on TikTok, and you can find me on YouTube.
All right, great.
All right.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much,
Cheers.
Younes. That's it for this week, and we will be back next week. And in the meantime, have a lovely week, and do remember 25th of June in Wellingborough. Thank you. Hello. If you're enjoying the New Culture Forum channel and you believe in our mission, may I invite you to join our membership scheme at the link below or on our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Our work is more important now than ever, and we have great plans ahead for the future, but we can't do it without your support. From as little as £3 per month, you can help ensure that we continue on our mission. As a member, you'll receive a range of benefits, including access to exclusive content, invitations to our private events, including here at our studios, free copies of our books, and much, much more, including, of course, our famous NCF mug. If you aren't able to become a member, then please help us by clicking this button and subscribing to our channel. It's completely free. Just remember to also click the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we post new videos. Thank you.